Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning. Right now at 5, stimulus shut down after President Trump says he wants to wait until after the election to continue negotiations, but then a late night reversal. What he says he's now willing to sign immediately.
Easing COVID-19 restrictions as Kern County prepares to move into the red tier. What that means for businesses and places of worship. Plus, will you be dining in time soon? Your chance to weigh in. Coming up.
With kids spending an unprecedented amount of time in front of screens, parents have concerns about damage to young eyes. We'll talk to a local eye doctor about the possible benefits and side effects of blue light blocking glasses. This is Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. Good morning, 5 a.m. Good to have you with us. I'm Maddie Jansen along with Alex Fisher, and I could definitely see a change. This morning heading in, I saw stars. So that's a good sign.
You know, we started yesterday morning off with some hazy skies, hazy and smoky skies. It seemed to improve, though, as the day went on, which is definitely good news. Shows us that we could see some changes in our forecast in the coming days. This morning, Moses Small is in talking about your forecast as we head an inch closer to the weekend. And what's going to make this weekend even better is the cooler temperatures. Right, Moses?
Absolutely. And as you guys mentioned, we could see stars, and that's a very welcome change from what we've been looking at before. Unfortunately, here in Kern County, we do still have an air quality advisory. But right now, Bakersfield is sitting at a moderate 67, and we're going to see some very far being low average temperatures this week. But for now, visibility is at 6 miles, and the air quality index is at 129, which is unhealthy for sensitive groups. So it's certainly not as bad as it has been historically over the past couple weeks. And right now, we're going to see the temperature dip all the way down to the mid 60s, and we're going to see it rebound all the way up to 90 degrees later today. And so we're in one of the chillier parts of the morning right now, but that will change very quickly. And Tehachapi right now at a very, very chilly 46 degrees. So the mountains are in for a very cool morning. And we're going to see those temperatures bounce all the way up into the 80s later today. And we're going to update you more about Hurricane Delta later on. But thankfully, we're not dealing with any storms here in Kern County. So the most we're going to have to contend with is unhealthy air.
All right, Moses, thanks so much. For this morning, a man is in the hospital after police say he was shot in central Bakersfield. It happened just before 9:30 last night on California Avenue, right across the street from Bakersfield High School. BPD says witnesses reported hearing multiple gunshots in the area. When officers arrived, they say they found a man who had been shot multiple times. He was taken to the hospital. The name of the victim has not been released as of this morning. There's also no information on the man who was shot. Then that was the third shooting yesterday. Just before 7 a.m. that morning, 2 people were wounded in a shooting at Martin Luther King Jr. Park. Police say their shot spotter captured 10 rounds of gunfire. Both victims were rushed to the hospital. Police have not released a description of the shooter. And just hours before that shooting, police responded to 34th and Q Streets around 4:30 yesterday morning. That's just west of Memorial Hospital. Officers say an adult suffered major gunshot wounds. No word on his or her condition. We also have no description of a suspect. If you have any information on these shootings, you're asked to call the police department at 327-7111.
5:03 and now to the latest on the pandemic here in Kern County. Public Health announcing 87 new cases and 1 new death yesterday. The number of lives lost in Kern now stands at 387. There are more than 10,700 people recovering at home, while 47 remain isolated in the hospital. Kern County has seen more than 32,000 cases of COVID-19 since the pandemic started in March. And some good news for our struggling economy this morning. We could see fewer restrictions as early as next week, moving from the most restricted purple tier to the less restrictive red tier.
Up until last week, it's been really slow for us. A lot of people have been asking already when we're going to be open. So we're just waiting.
Kern Public Health says the county just barely met the requirements to move up a tier. Now we have to maintain those numbers until next Tuesday. That means the county has to continue to make special efforts to ensure the health of particularly vulnerable communities, continue to have fewer than 63 new cases a day, and maintain a testing positivity rate of below 8%. To do this, Supervisor Mike Maggard says everyone should get tested, not just those feeling sick.
the only people that were getting tested were, to the large extent, people who were already ill. So what we're doing now is trying to make more people aware of their health and their opportunities to measure and monitor where they are with this. And by increasing testing, we think that will, and that has in fact brought the rate down.
Moving up a tier means restaurants, churches, movie theaters, gyms, museums, zoos, and more can reopen. Restaurants and churches can open at 25% capacity or 100 people indoors, whichever is fewer. And gyms must be at 10% capacity. Nothing changes with bars or breweries. Only the ones that serve food can remain open outdoors.
KGET Business Watch is brought to you by Grapevine MSP Technology Services, the Valley's leading IT service provider.
Welcome back here at 519. DoorDash is teaming up with Macy's in its first partnership to make deliveries for a department store. DoorDash will offer same-day and next-day delivery from 500 Macy's and Bloomingdale's stores across the nation. As the country tries to get back to normal in the era of COVID-19, a group of researchers is trying to help. They've devised a way for business owners to demonstrate the steps they're taking to keep customers safe. NBC's Chris Pallone has the story.
As states across the country allow businesses to reopen, owners fear it won't matter if people don't feel safe venturing out. Now researchers at Rice University's Texas Policy Lab think they have a solution. An inspection program run by the government which would grade businesses on a list of common COVID-19 safety measures and could be customized for different industries from offices to restaurants.
Wearing a mask, social distancing of at least 6 feet, and proper hygiene, space seating for theaters and restaurants, drop-off guidelines to avoid crowding for childcare centers and schools.
The researchers say the infrastructure already exists for cities and states to quickly implement a grading program.
So we see this grading system similar to the grading system for the restaurants.
So you'll know not only that businesses are committed to adhering to safety guidelines, but also how well they're actually doing so. And this will help members of the public make more informed choices regarding how to manage their own infection risk.
The researchers say to start, businesses could volunteer to take part in the inspections to show off how seriously they're taking COVID safety measures. But ultimately, they say if inspections become mandatory, like restaurant surveys by the local health department, doing business will be safer.
There's always a subset of people that are more risk averse, and so having this kind of grading system could show all patrons that a certain business or all businesses are being safe.
A sign of reassurance in a time of uncertainty. Chris Pallone, NBC News.
5:25 now, and in entertainment news, rock and roll legend Eddie Van Halen, who shot to stardom with his band in the late 70s and early 80s, has died. News Nation reporter Gene King has the story.
Eddie Van Halen, the iconic guitarist and co-founder of Van Halen, lost his battle with throat cancer. TMZ goes on to say he passed away at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica with his beloved wife, Janie, by his side. According to their sources, his health spiraled the last 3 days, and the cancer spread to his brain and other organs. Van Halen's fight lasted more than a decade. A heavy smoker for years, it's believed he got throat cancer from holding a metal guitar pick in his mouth, which he did for 2 decades. Van Halen has deep roots in Southern California, formed in Pasadena in 1972 with his brother Alex on drums, Michael Anthony on bass, and David Lee Roth as lead singer, with Sammy Hagar taking over in 1985. Iconic songs include Runnin' with the Devil, Hot for Teacher, Panama, and Jump. Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007, he spoke to KTLA 5 News in 2013 about the importance of kids learning music.
For music classes or programs to be the first thing to get knocked off because of budget cuts, I think is just a big crock, you know. I believe it to be, it should be not an elective, it should be mandatory.
His son Wolfgang tweeted this, which reads in part, "I can't believe I'm having to write this, but my father has lost his long and arduous battle with cancer this morning. He was the best father I could ever ask for. My heart is broken, and I don't think I'll ever fully recover from this loss. I love you so much, Pop."
Such iconic music.
Iconic for sure. I know a lot of people were shocked to hear about his passing, and a lot of tributes were, I saw a lot of tributes throughout the day yesterday.
All right, thank you, Moses. 5:31 is your time now. In Washington this morning, a president in recovery and a stimulus in limbo. On his first full day back at the White House after being hospitalized for COVID-19, President Trump stopped negotiations on a coronavirus stimulus, then appeared to reverse course, leaving the White House explaining. Tracy Potts has more on how this affects another possible stimulus check.
Maddie, good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's unclear when people might get the $1,200. Nancy Pelosi wants the big deal. The president says he'll sign off just on the stimulus checks now, and he wants to push the negotiations off until after the election. Stimulus deliberations shut down in the middle of a pandemic by a president recovering from COVID-19. He first tweeted that negotiations are off until after the election. The stock market took a nosedive.
Clearly, this is a huge shock to the system. We know millions of Americans are out of work and they're depending on another stimulus check.
Then, in an apparent reversal, the president said he's ready to sign off on stimulus checks and billions for airlines and small business loans. The White House explaining the big deal is off, but the president wants to deal with each issue separately. Still contagious, Mr. Trump says he's planning to attend the presidential debate in Miami next week.
We have to ask if the stress of a debate is really worth taking along with the infectious implications of that potentially for the people in the debate.
The president's posts comparing COVID to the flu were taken down by Facebook and flagged on Twitter.
You don't get a pandemic that kills 1 million people, and it isn't even over yet with influenza. So it is not correct to say it's the same as flu.
At least 18 people tied to the White House have now tested positive. The latest advisor, Stephen Miller, at the Pentagon, defense officials tell NBC the Joint Chiefs chair and other top brass are quarantined after a Coast Guard official caught the virus. 7 of the 8 Joint Chiefs were in a meeting with that Coast Guard official Friday. So now they've self-quarantined, and so has the director of the National Security Agency. I'm Tracy Potts, 17 News.
17 News is your local election headquarters, and Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris are expected to take the debate stage later tonight. The spotlight on the debate in Salt Lake City tonight had already intensified after President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden's debate last week, as the country grapples with a global pandemic and a slumping economy. President Trump and a number of his staff have tested positive for COVID-19. And plexiglass barriers between the two candidates were installed on both sides of the debate stage yesterday. Harris requested the additional safety measure because of Vice President Pence's potential exposure to President Trump, who tested positive for coronavirus last week. Pence's camp has complained that the plastic barrier is excessive, since the distance between the two has already been increased to 12 feet. The vice president has been tested multiple times and has tested negative every time. However, several White House officials tested positive after testing negative multiple times following Mr. Trump's positive diagnosis. Those who attend Wednesday's debate will also be asked to wear a mask while in the hall.
Here at home, authorities are investigating a suspicious death in South Bakersfield. Sheriff's deputies received a report of a man down in the 2400 block of M Street around 3:40 yesterday afternoon. He was pronounced dead. The coroner identified the man as 71-year-old Jimmy Irwing. It's not known how Irwing died, but deputies say he had an unknown injury to his chest. An autopsy will be performed. Meantime, anyone with information is urged to call KCSO at 861-3110 or the secret witness hotline at 322-4040.
Officials say the 19-year-old driver of a car who blew through a stop sign in Shafter and hit another car, killing the 2 occupants, has also died. It happened around 4 on Monday afternoon on Poplar Avenue near Orange Street. The CHP says it has not yet determined if drugs or alcohol were factors in this crash. The identities of those who were killed have not been released.
In your 17 Crime Watch this morning, 2 people were arrested following the discovery of drugs inside a Tehachapi home. Sheriff's deputies were sent to Golden Hills Boulevard Monday for a welfare check on 55-year-old Edward Hughes. During a search of his home, deputies say they found methamphetamine, marijuana, meth, smoking pipes, and some scales. Hughes and 53-year-old Stephanie Alexander were arrested and booked into the Kern County Jail. The Bakersfield Police Department continues its efforts to help people get rid of potentially dangerous prescription drugs. Once again, the department is participating in the annual Drug Take Back event on October 24th. You can bring unwanted, unused, or expired prescription drugs to the disposal site at the Kaiser Permanente parking lot at 3501 Stockdale Highway from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The service is free with no questions asked. Last fall, Kern County turned in more than 1,000 pounds of prescription drugs.
And the Bakersfield Police Department has received more than $440,000 to help with traffic enforcement and pedestrian safety. The department says $407,500 was awarded by the California Office of Traffic Safety and $33,000 was awarded from the Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Program. BPD says the money will go toward funding a variety of programs, including DUI checkpoints, increased traffic and DUI patrols, and public education events. And police in Delano also received a big financial boost. The Office of Traffic Safety awarded that department a nearly $50,000 grant for 1 year. It will fund a variety of traffic safety programs, including patrols with emphasis on alcohol and drug-impaired driving prevention and patrols with emphasis on awareness and education of California's hands-free cell phone law. As Kern County kids embark on yet another month of distance learning, many students are complaining of headaches and poor sleep due to a significant increase in screen time. Now some families are buying blue light glasses to combat the potential negative effects that come with an increase in computer time. 17's Taylor Schaub spoke to a local eye doctor about what you need to know before buying these blue blocking lenses. Taylor, good morning.
Well, good morning, Alex. Since distance learning began last spring, a lot of emphasis has been placed on the light that's emitted from these various devices like our cell phones, our computers, and even our TVs, which we've been watching more of. And this emphasis has made parents wonder if blue light blocking glasses are a needed purchase for kids as they continue distance learning. From the computer to the TV and everything in between, Kristen Moore says her kids have never spent more time staring at their screens.
My youngest, he's 8. He tends to rub his eyes a lot as he's staring at the computer.
Then, having heard about the adverse effects surrounding blue light, the mother of 4 purchased a pair of glasses for each of her kids, seeing results almost immediately.
I bought all of them a pair, and now it's something that when they get on the computer, it's like, make sure you have your glasses.
But what is this potentially harmful light coming from our computer screens? Dr. Vin Dang with Empire Eyes and Lasers says he's seeing a large uptick in patients asking that very same question.
The evidence in terms of blue light has been shown that it causes macular degeneration.
While Dang admits distance learning can cause eye strain for students, the evidence on long-term exposure to blue light is questionable at best.
Well, the jury is still out in terms of, if the light that's emitted from these devices can potentially harm the eyes.
Cautioning parents to be careful diagnosing their children, as buying cheap lenses on places like Amazon can often lead to disastrous results.
You don't know exactly what you're blocking, right? Okay. So then there's issues with, disrupting like your circadian rhythm, which is, associated with sleeping cycle. Sometimes it can also affect your mood and things like that.
Instead, Dang says if your kids are feeling eye irritation from increased technology use, to make sure they receive some routine relief. And then if the issues persist, make an appointment and bite the bullet on a good pair of blue light blocking lenses. Yeah, Maddie and Alex, Dr. Dang says basically it's like buying a good pair of sunglasses. If you spend the money, they'll last a long time and they'll keep your eyes protected. Instead of going to the gas station, maybe buying a $5 pair of sunglasses and that UV protection wears off pretty fast. That's kind of how it is with these blue light blocking glasses. Reporting live, Taylor Schaub, 17 News.
Welcome back to your 17 Health Watch. As suicide rates among teens increases here in the U.S., new research identifies what may put certain kids at risk. The analysis included data from 66 studies on youth suicidal behavior, and it showed smartphone abuse, nutritional imbalance, menstrual problems, disturbed sleep, and poor coping skills were internal risk factors. External risk factors included parental mental health problems and poor family interaction. The researchers say improving nutrition and parental interactions could reduce suicidal behaviors in youth. A new study finds undergoing general anesthesia does not increase the odds of developing dementia. Canadian scientists tracked over 7,000 older adults who underwent surgery for 5 years. They found patients who received general anesthesia had the same long-term risk for dementia as those who had regional anesthesia. Local students are set to get special training on the life-saving skill of hands-only CPR. The American Heart Association announced yesterday the Kern High School District will receive 15 CPR training kits thanks to a grant from Valley Strong Credit Union. The kits will let school staff walk students through the process of providing hands-off CPR, as well as the use of an automated external defibrillator. KHSD says it will incorporate the CPR training as part of the health curriculum. People under 45 have seen the fastest growth of new cases of COVID-19 in recent months, and a new report finds those aged 20 to 29 specifically accounted for the greatest portion of new cases between June and August. New research also shows which young people are at the highest risk for developing serious complications. Dr. Frank McGeorge reports.
Data published in JAMA Internal Medicine looked at over 3,200 people between 18 and 34 years old who were hospitalized with COVID-19. Among those patients, 21% required the intensive care unit and 2.7% ultimately died. Overall, 3 medical conditions significantly increased the risk of death: obesity, hypertension, and diabetes. In particular, morbid obesity and hypertension more than doubled the risk of death, and the effect was additive. Each additional condition further increased the likelihood of death. Essentially, having any of these conditions raised a person's risk from that of a young person to a middle-aged person.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.